Hi, this is Joe Rossitter for Native Instruments. Deep House is a melting pot of classic drum machines, basic bass lines, and simple melodic elements that all work together perfectly. But composing and designing rhythmic synth chords and melodies that groove along with beats isn't always easy. So in this video, I'll show you how colourful performance instrument Flesh can help you synthesize and sequence inspiring melodic parts, suitable for deep house, tech house, techno, or any electronic genre. Throw in a basic audio loop and Flesh will re-synthesize the loop and help you sequence a bass line, monophonic synth, chords, and even effects. So let's get started. To try a demo of Flesh, click the card on the top right of the screen now. Here's my basic deep house drum groove. It's time to come up with some melodic parts and develop this into a full-blown track. So let's call up Flesh. It's a reactor or reactor player based instrument. I'll open Reactor 6 on this MIDI track, then call up Flesh and load the init patch to start from scratch. Designed by producer and performer Tim Exile in collaboration with NI, Flesh's primary role is to listen to a rhythmic audio loop, then use the loop's transients and frequency content to intelligently generate and sequence complementary bass lines, riffs, chords, and synth patterns. Flesh consists of 5 engines represented by the coloured circle sections. Click a header icon to enter that page for editing. There's a sub-synth for sub-bass, a monosynth, a sample player, a polysynth, and finally the latter 3 can be sent in parallel to this auxiliary delay effects section. Clicking and dragging a circle section sets that generator's volume. I'm going to turn them all down to silence for now, except for the sample player. Flesh works in a unique way, so let's start at the very beginning and load in a drum loop. So I'll drag and drop this audio loop here onto the sample player. In this sample player's editor, I'll reset these parameters. I'll click this hold button and Flesh will trigger the loop. And we can hear the loop now in pretty much its original form. Now I'll click this sample header down here at the bottom to enter this editing page. And you can see that Flesh has sliced up this audio loop. To alter the loop's playback and timing, I can adjust slice threshold, the number of bars or steps played within a loop, and apply offset and gain. It's really easy to come up with interesting rhythms and polyrhythms, as you can hear. Deep house often features heavy swing. In Flesh, this can be applied up here in the top transport bar. It's worth noting that this one particular state of settings is only one of 12 possible states you can set up. Each state is represented by a circular slot. These are called remote octaves. In the samples remote octave section, I'll drag this first sample over to another slot to copy those settings. And I can then head in and alter parameters in this second slot to create a variation. Now I've done that, I'll do the same thing again and set up a third state in a third slot. And I'll do this yet again, and so on. I'm just duplicating the original sample here, but you can use a different sample in each slot if you like. So now we've got a few different variations on our main sample. By either clicking one of these 12 remote octave buttons, or by triggering notes C2 to B3 on a MIDI keyboard, I can flip between the 12 sample slots. And remember that this loop is going to drive the pitch and rhythm of the other synth engines. And this is all on the fly, in perfect sync with my host tempo. So now we have some loop variations set up, let's use them to trigger Flesh's synth engines. Although you can use the sample player as an audible source, I'm going to silence it and only use this engine to drive the other synth sounds. So back on the main mixer page, I'll turn this sample engine down. And now I'll turn up this one, which is the polysynth. And you can hear how that initial loop is triggering the synth behind the scenes. Let's head over to Flesh's harmony section. Here you can define how notes and harmonies will be triggered by the discrete frequency components of our sample loop. So I'm going to draw in a suitable chord pattern in this chord section. I'm going to tune the polysynth's root octave up. Just like the sample's remote octave slots, you can set up a dozen independent harmony states and then alternate between them by clicking the buttons or by jamming MIDI notes C1 to B2. So we've got some notes going. I'll now flip back to the polysynth editing page and audition through these 16 presets up here. The presets differ wildly, so check out Flesh's manual for in-depth descriptions of each. This preset sounds good, I'll stick with this. What's great is that I can jump around the various sample slots I set up earlier, and that alters this synth pattern on the fly. Within this polysynth engine, I can tweak spectrum, character, length, and mod to sculpt the sound's dynamics and timbre. Moving on, to add another synth layer to this deep chord, I'll now turn up the wavetable-based monophonic synth engine. Again, I can select a suitable preset. As I said before, check out the Flesh manual for detailed preset descriptions. To tune this mono synth line, I can set the root note and octave here. If only this treble symbol is toggled, only the sample loop's high frequency content will trigger the mono synth. If only this bass symbol is toggled, only the loop's low frequency content will trigger the mono synth. And when both are toggled, all of the loop's frequencies trigger the mono synth. This melody knob defines the positive or negative playback pitch in relation to the sample loop's transients. And again, I can adjust spectrum, character, length and mod to tweak the sound further. Next, for bottom end weight, let's blend in some hefty sub-bass via this sub-synthesizer, which simply follows either the monosynth's or the polysynth's notes, depending on which of these buttons you toggle. And then there's this effects section at the end. It's a crazy filtered dual delay that's again driven by the sample loop's spectral information. In here I can select a preset and then raise these circles to send the engines to the effect. Just like with the harmony and samples remote octave sections, The Sounds remote octaves, down here, allows you to set up 12 independent states across the entire instrument that can, again, be switched between via MIDI. So now we've set everything up. Although we've got all these different independent synth engines running, we can make them all move and breathe together as one. You've seen that the 4 engines have spectrum, character, length and mod dials that are used to shape each engine individually, and you can assign these to be influenced by the main mixer's 4 corresponding macros, meaning that you can make global adjustments to all engines simultaneously. I'm just going to set up some assignments, tweak their ranges, and then I can sweep these global macros to shape everything at once. And with this you can see how useful Flesh can be in a live performance scenario, as you can use MIDI to flip between states, keep everything in key and in sync with your DAW, and govern everything with customised controls. But it's not just for live performance. Flesh is also a great multi-track studio tool that can spit out inspiring melodic and rhythmic ideas you wouldn't necessarily have thought of otherwise. What's great is that you can route Flesh's individual synth engines out to separate tracks in your DAW, so you can sift through the audio stems of the individual engines and edit the performance as you wish. So that's it for this video. There are plenty more Flesh features to explore for yourself, such as LFO and envelope modulation. But hopefully this quick overview has inspired you to fire up Flesh and get creative. Until next time, thanks for watching.